16 video game ripoffs that made millions. In October 2021, a new 3D horror game was released named Poppy Playtime, instantly exploding in popularity, but also becoming one of the most ripped-off games in history. Within months, hundreds of clones appeared on app stores, with one in particular reaching over 5 million downloads, Blue Monster Escape. And no, that's not the description of Poppy Playtime. From the levels to the mechanics, this entire game was designed from the ground up as a complete carbon copy. I mean, they even got the grab pack. From a dollar store Huggy Wuggy to graphics so much worse than the original, it's surprising to see such a shameless ripoff become so successful. They even stole assets from Minecraft, like how much worse can it get? Well, it wasn't until I looked into Among Us that I realized just how big the ripoff game market really is. Everyone wanted a piece of the action when it became hugely popular, and of course that included Werewolf Among Us. It takes the entire game concept and design, but just places it in the medieval era instead of on a spaceship. They even have their own version of venting with cellar doors and an identical UI for meetings. Surprisingly, the game was mostly made as a replacement for Among Us in China, since the original is banned there and is otherwise a complete copy of the game. Just like Creative Destruction and Fortnite, of course 2018 was dominated by the new Battle Royale game making billions of dollars. NetEase was drooling at those numbers, and within 9 months they'd launch a clone with a striking resemblance. The devs did not stop there, copying Fortnite's locker design, loot pool, music. It was insane how much they got away with. When it released on mobile for free, it instantly gained millions of players while also becoming one of the most downloaded games in China's history. They were going to run several tournaments with prizes up to $100,000, and for a Fortnite clone, this thing was making a ton of money. But sadly, it didn't last long. As of June 2022, Creative Destruction servers have been turned off for good. And while Fortnite and Poppy Playtime are incredibly successful, the most famous video game character of all time is Super Mario. The franchise has made over $22 billion from video game sales, and with money comes clones like the great GIANA sisters. Around the time the original Mario Bros. Came out, this platformer took everything that was great about it and, well, copied it. The only differences are that you need to rescue your sister rather than Princess Peach, and you're kind of playing as some bushy yellow-haired guy and not an Italian plumber. According to rumors, the developers of Great GIANA Sisters wanted to make something that looked like Super Mario Bros. But could be played on other consoles. It was an instant hit. It made millions of dollars, but this is Nintendo you're messing with, and after a few weeks, the original game vanished. There have been some poor follow-up games about the GIANA Sisters, but they've all flopped and been met with negative reviews, unlike our next ripoff. In 2016, Pokemon Go was so popular that it was the only thing people were talking about for months. When you have that much attention, it's the perfect time to make your own clone, and Let's Hunt Monsters was absolutely diabolical. Tencent created a replacement for Pokemon Go in China, which still isn't allowed in the country to this day. Took the concept of having the phone's location as a part of the gameplay, even capturing monsters in these fake Pokeballs. It became the second most popular AR game next to Pokemon Go and even earned over $50 million in 5 months. Something that's typically rare for ripoffs is added creativity, so I will give credit for the ability to merge together monsters to create new ones. I mean, at least it's not entirely identical. Other than that, 7 out of 10 on the ripoff scale. I mean, it could be worse, like Minecraft's biggest ripoff. Gotta admit, this is probably one of the games that you've seen the most clones of due to such high popularity, mixed with players wanting it for free, not to mention how easy it is to recreate the game. One of these is Castle Miner Z, which takes the entire world of Minecraft, adds some guns, and gives you a character that looks like it's straight out of a Wii. But I've got to admit, even for a ripoff, it's fairly decent and even has some of its own unique features like dragons. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to try out a diamond assault rifle? But not all ripoffs have to be cheap budget clones. Some are even fully fledged modern games that simply take heavy inspiration from others and turn out to create something incredibly similar. You've probably heard of Mortal Kombat, and if so, you might have also heard of Killer Instinct, which is a very similar game. They both have the same finishing moves, fatalities, even some entire characters, but Killer Instinct still added some elements of its own. Things such as its combo system didn't exist in Mortal Kombat at the time, so I guess you could even say they take inspiration from each other. Other games like Borderlands have even had their own duplicates too. Mobile game Bounty Hunter Black Dawn takes the RPG and shooter theme, as well as the entire art style of Borderlands. Seems like a pretty innocent mobile game at first, until you start to notice that even the skill trees, relics, and enemies are so similar. But at least they were a little more creative and didn't make a one-to-one replica of Borderlands, giving mobile players a taste of the game. When games have a unique style, it isn't a surprise to see them completely ripped off, and Team Fortress 2 is famous for its iconic characters and cartoon look. Well, Final Combat is a Chinese ripoff that decided to take all of that and, well, didn't even try to hide it. All the characters are introduced in the same way, and if that wasn't enough, the classes are completely stolen from TF2 as well. The Rocket is identical to the soldier, but just wearing a firefighter's outfit. The Medic is now a young nurse instead of a doctor. The Fat Man is a redesigned heavy class. I mean, they just swapped the sniper to a woman and simply put the Pyro into a clown costume. So you might be thinking, wow, that is pretty terrible. But they went a step further and even cloned the entire maps. If I were the devs, I'd be furious seeing my stolen animations and identical gameplay. Now, ripoffs never had a good record with graphics and quality, and the same can be said about this Uncharted clone. A game with the exact same premise, locations, and missions, Unearthed is an almost identical game to the original. Unearthed also follows the character of a treasure hunter who is already incredibly similar to Nathan Drake from his appearance alone. Even playing the game just feels like you're in an extremely early beta of Uncharted with graphics straight out of 2003. Sometimes it seems like the creators slipped up with some of the characters' dialogue, even using the words Uncharted. I mean, it's pretty clear where they got the inspiration from. From fighting for treasure to being the aim of the game, Street Fighter is a legendary arcade game that's still largely popular today. Just 2 years after the second game release, a game called Fighter's History appeared, which is based off the exact same gameplay concept, and I mean, come on, it looks like an exact photocopy. It uses the same controls as Street Fighter 2, as well as the fighting styles and animations. I mean, even the announcer sounds identical.
Mizoguchi wins!
Losing screen, slow motion, even locations and art style is undeniably a copy too. And another clone that everyone can agree on is Those Nights at Rachel's, an obvious copy of Five Nights at Freddy's, with some simple changes to the characters and their appearance. Otherwise, you could hardly tell you're playing a different game. Now, on April Fool's, the creator decided to release a sequel, which was hilarious. The game looked the same, but instead of being locked in the office to monitor the cameras, you could leave the room to walk around and use a gun. Not only that, but when you come across the animatronics, this time they'll be noticeably different as they T-pose a float towards you. The entire sequel is a great joke and possibly one of the greatest ripoffs on this list, purely for enjoyment of going around and shooting animatronics with like these goofy sound effects. Definitely took the horror edge out of the game, but I love it for that. But not all knockoffs are made by indie game developers. Sometimes even the big brands could jump on the trend to replicate their own. Star Wars Dark Forces is a PlayStation 1 shooter which sees you fight against the Empire. However, when playing, both the graphics and gameplay feel increasingly similar to that of the Doom franchise. With the first-person perspective, labyrinth-style levels to complete, and objectives to find, there's no denying that LucasArts clearly had some inspiration here. But at least this game took the idea and made it their own, instead of creating a complete copy of the original, and the same can't be said for Nova. It's a futuristic first-person shooter game which bears a striking resemblance to Halo. The sci-fi weapons, space-themed locations, and even the character design are nearly indistinguishable from each other. The game runs terribly. It doesn't make up for the poor performance with good graphics either. To make matters worse, the gameplay itself isn't great, and the story is as bad as you could imagine. The only real upside to Nova is that it was available for PSP and mobile, whereas Halo is only available on Xbox, but it's definitely nowhere near a worthy replacement. Another ripoff that's just as shameless is BUBSY, a side-scrolling platformer game where you are a super fast animal with the aim of collecting yarn coins and completing the levels. Must sound a little familiar? Yep, it's a clear copy of the Sonic games and took just about every idea they could from the original. It feels really clunky, and for a game focused on physics and jumping, it's not that great at it. Even worse, the character could become annoying and repetitive, only making you want to put the game down even faster. But as for something you might not find too bad, ROBOPON is an RPG that focuses on the character Cody and a world of creatures that can be collected and fight alongside you. It's a complete copy of Pokemon with similar characters, gameplay elements, and almost identical menus. They made several versions called Sun, Star, and even Moon. I mean, I haven't heard those names before. The gameplay is practically the same as well, with the story, appearance, and monsters all borrowing from the original. And those are 16 video game clones that made millions. Hope you all enjoyed it. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on T5G.